Did you ever spend any time on the field, Tom?
Yeah, I don't think you should never do that again. I thought you was gonna walk down the top steps. That was crazy. Don't let that cape boost your head up no more.
Just like this little boy flying down the steps because he thought he was Superman, this is how I feel when I see churches on every corner and no change in the community. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever part of the world you may be watching in. I'm here in the East Coast in the United States, but today I want to talk to you about churches on every corner and the community is still dark and on its way to hell. Now, you know what I mean? I'm going to be talking to my black folks today, but don't get it twisted. I love everyone. I love everyone, and I believe in there's no, God doesn't see any race or color. He sees people. We all have the same color blood, red. But I'm here to talk about, I'm addressing some of my black folks this morning. And I love my people. I really do. And but again, as I said, I love all people, but I love my black people. And whether you call us black, African, Negro, Afro, whatever. And truthfully, that sounds like a conspiracy to me. Someone's trying to keep us from understanding who our true identity is. But that's another story for another day. But we in the black community, especially the black church, we're at a crossroad right now. And, you know, we keep looking back into the past, vainly grasping on diminishing victimhood, which no longer serves us well in 2022. You know, as we look ahead, we must begin to define what our true purpose is. You know, we have a beautiful and powerful, bright future with the Lord if we decide to put him first. You know, as born again believers, we're told long ago that our fight is not against flesh and blood. And we can see that in Ephesians, and it says it like this. Ephesians 6 says it like this. For our is not a conflict with mere flesh and blood, but with the despotism, the empires that force us and control government of this dark world. The spiritual hosts of evil arrayed against us in heavenly warfare. We are at a crossroad, black church. When I drive through my city here or any major city, and I've been through a lot of cities in this country, the United States, and it never ceases to amaze me that you find a church on every corner. Storefront churches, regular standalone churches, churches on every corner. And here, you know, in my city here, we're called the city of churches, but yet the city is falling apart daily. It's a joke. Drugs are running rampant, prostitution, murders, but yet we have a church on every corner. And I just don't understand how, if we're really preaching the gospel, why are our corners and our streets and our neighborhoods falling apart? Why are young people running around here aimless with no vision? What's going on? You know, it's funny, you know, we live in a better time. You know, I'm a Generation X guy. My father was a baby boomer, and his parents were the silent generation. And I always tell folks I was the first born in my family with, as a black or African American or Negro, or whatever you want to call me. I was the first born with full equal rights, full civil rights. But we know the Civil Rights Bill was passed, I believe, in 1965. And prior to that, blacks, we were confined. We were segregated. We didn't have a lot of rights, particularly as you went further deeper into the South. My grandfather was from Alabama, Mobile, Alabama. And my dad would tell me stories where him and my grandmother would go down to the South to visit the family. My dad and grandmother were more darker complexion, similar to what I am, maybe a little slight darker. But my grandfather could pass as the white man. He was very, had very little melatonin in his skin, and he had straight curly hair, or straight hair, depending on how he wanted to wear it. And he can get away with, white folks couldn't tell that he was white. So oftentimes as they traveled deep into the South, going to Alabama to visit the family, they would they couldn't go into certain restaurants because there was segregation. And my dad would tell me vividly of these long trips to Alabama, driving from Maryland to Alabama, and they had to stay in the car. And my grandfather would have to go in to get the food, whatever refreshments they needed on his long road trip, and they would have to eat them in the car. So that makes you put in perspective. My dad was born without full equal rights. His father and mother were born without full equal rights. And it goes further into slavery. So I'm the first in my family, first generation to actually be born with full civil rights. But they had community back then. They had full functioning families. What they lacked in freedoms in this country, they had in community, and they stuck together. Now we have all these civil rights, and we have nothing but broken communities. True statistic, 1 out of 4 black women can expect to be married in their lifetime. But yet we're having babies all over the place. We have no families. Most of our households are fatherless, but yet we have a church on every corner. I mean, women will go to churches and they will give more honor to the pastor than to their husband. Is it by chance that churches want to keep women single or men? But most churches know that, I mean, let's just be real. Women are emotional. That's how God designed us. And most men are more logical. And the two come together, it's a perfect combination. Because if I'm alone, I can be very rigid, very logical, sometimes cold. Where women can be very emotional and their emotions govern a lot of their decisions. But when you put the two together, it's a perfect match. So it keeps me from being so rigid, and it keeps them from being so emotionally tied. And we know black churches, they collect a lot of money, billions of dollars per year, but our communities are still suffering. Help me understand that. Churches on every corner, they can't, and they don't even talk to each other. And I know the church I'm at now, we're reaching out to other churches. On my block alone, there's about 7 churches where the church I attend is at. And I'm encouraging the congregation, we need to reach out and make these connections. We cannot no longer continue to function in a silo, but we need to be drawing others. But if their vision is not the vision, which is the gospel, is just trying to spread the good news that Jesus saves, you know, they're out there trying to, a lot of bishops and pastors and apostles, don't even let me get started with the titles. But a lot of them out here trying to self-promote than promote Jesus. See, our church, we're here to put Christ first. He's the center of the ministry. But a lot of churches aren't. He's not. They may have Christ written out there on their billboard, Church of Christ, or Church of the First Church of God, or First Baptist Church of Christ. You've seen all these titles. First Apostolic Church of the Redeemed. The titles can get real long too. But oftentimes, just because they have Jesus or Christ or Lord or God on their billboard does not mean that they're functioning and trying to serve the real gospel. So we have to get back together and figure out what we're going to do, because it's funny. The black church is becoming a laughing stock. We're becoming a laughing stock. How can we have all these churches on every corner, but our community is still on a highway to hell? Our young children have no direction. Most of our households, 87% or higher, are without a father figure. And I'm not going to get all into the cause, the root cause, of the causations to why this is happening. That's another story for another day. But it's a reality. So how can we progress if we don't deal with our problems? We don't have a what I call an economic problem. We have a spiritual problem. As I mentioned, as I read Ephesians chapter 6, we have a spiritual issue. And until we decide to turn back to God, the Bible says, if my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves, pray and seek my face, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sins and heal their land. If we decide not to turn to God, we continue to look for the government to legislate our morality, to legislate us out of this poverty, poverty situation, whether it's financial or poverty of the mind, we'll never see change. We'll never see change. So I'm here to really encourage folks who see this video, share it. Talk to your pastor. Ask him, what exactly are you doing for this community? Are we just a church within 4 walls, or we just come together in 4 walls to worship, but we're out here trying to make a change in this community? If the pastor is not doing anything for that community, I highly recommend that you leave that church. Because last I read in the Bible, Jesus did most of his ministry outside. And the people followed him because he had the truth. And just like Jesus, he said we can do greater works. So we should be out here in these communities trying to affect change. And it's not easy. I know it's not easy. But you should start anyway. It's never too late to start. So, with all this poverty, drugs, and crime concentrated in our lower income neighborhoods, yet a lot of these churches are getting money hand over foot. Like I said, last I read, the black church took in billions of dollars last year, and they're probably going to do the same in 2022. But we really have to get our minds gripped around that. We got to turn back to the Lord, because we are in a spiritual warfare, and many of our young children's souls are being wiped away from this earth. I always tell the people in the church, death is serious, and when you lose someone to death, especially a tragic death, whether it's some type of killing or murder or something, it's tragic, especially when that young man or young woman hasn't had a chance to live their full life. But more important than them losing their body, this fleshly body, I'm always concerned, where's that soul? Because whether you believe it or not, you are a spiritual being, and your soul will end up one way, either heaven or hell. You don't have to believe me, but I believe the Bible. The Bible is my authority. I always ask folks when they say, I always say, what's your source of truth? Mine is the Bible. What is yours? The Bible was here before you were born and will be here long after you're gone. So I believe the Bible, and I believe the Bible said there's a heaven and hell. So a lot of these churches are full of hell. I'm just being quite frank. A lot of them are full of hell, and they're there just to promote man and themselves, but they're not here to change or make any changes in these communities. So how can we progress Black America? We cannot progress if a better future until the demonic agenda against the Black, Negro, African American, Afro America is dealt with first. So I thank you for your time. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe. And until next time, this is Damon from Life Inspirations. Please share, and let's get the word out. Let's get the word out. If we're gonna have churches on every corner, we want to see change in our community. Until next time, God bless. Word out. If we're gonna have churches on every corner, we want to see change in our community. Until next time, God bless.